Okay, so now let's have product costing. So from our last meeting, sabi ko product costing is yung way on how we cost our product. Okay, yung mga manufactured products natin. So sa manufacturing, ang alam nating cost ay yung manufacturing cost. Siyempre, we have direct materials, direct labor, and the manufacturing overhead na nahahati sa dalawa, variable and fixed overhead. So, pag-aralan natin yung mga methods na pwede natin gamitin to cost a product. Costing. First, we have here the absorption costing or yung tinatawag din natin na traditional costing. Costing method that includes all manufacturing costs, direct materials, direct labor, and both variable and fixed manufacturing overhead in the cost of a unit of product. It treats fixed manufacturing overhead as a product cost. So, kapag absorption costing or traditional costing yung ginagamit natin, so, kung paano tayo mag-cost ng product in traditional way. So, isasama natin lahat ng manufacturing cost, yung direct materials, direct labor, and the variable and fixed manufacturing overhead. So, yun yung kinoconsider natin as product cost. And the second method is variable costing. Costing method that includes only variable manufacturing cost, direct materials, direct labor, and variable manufacturing overhead in the cost of a unit of product. It treats fixed manufacturing overhead as a period cost. So, pag sinabi nating period cost, non-manufacturing cost, or hindi natin ini-include as a product cost or non-inventoriable cost. For example, kasi tinanong kayo, how much is the amount of the ending inventory? So, yung cost na na-compute nyo or nakuha nyo for product cost, yun lang yung isasama nyo for the inventoriable cost. So, anong pinagkaiba ni absorption at saka ni variable costing? Yung pagtitreat or yung treatment sa fixed manufacturing overhead. Sa absorption, treated as product cost, while in the variable costing, treatment niya is period cost or expensed immediately, not an inventoriable cost. And we also costing or yung tinatawag nating super variable costing. So, bakit sinabing super variable costing? Because this is an extreme form of variable costing in which only direct material cost are included as inventoriable cost. So, kumbaga, ang kinoconsider niya lang as inventoriable or product cost ay yung direct material cost, the direct labor, and other factory or manufacturing overhead ay period cost na kahit throughput costing or super variable costing. Okay? All other costs are cost of the period in which they are incurred. So, kung kukunin natin yung throughput margin, revenue or yung sales, less the direct material cost of the goods sold. So, yun lang yung magiging computation natin. Kung magkano lang yung total direct materials, yun lang ang ilales natin sa revenue or sales to get the throughput margin. 10 cases na may encounter natin sa pag-compute ng net income or net profit. Okay, so which of the following are product cost or inventoriable for each costing method? So, dito may check yung mga product cost at nilagyan natin ng mark na X kapag period cost. So, we have absorption costing, variable costing, and throughput costing. So, the types of cost na meron tayo, direct materials, direct labor, variable overhead, fixed overhead, variable selling and admin expenses, pati fixed selling and administrative expenses. So, under absorption costing, sabi natin kanina, yung inventoriable or product cost, lahat ng manufacturing cost. So, may check dito ang direct materials, direct labor, variable overhead, fixed overhead. Then, period cost na si variable and fixed selling and admin expenses. Pagdating naman sa variable costing, hindi natin ini-include si fixed manufacturing overhead. doon sa inventoriable or product cost. Kaya ang may check lang si direct materials, direct labor, and the variable overhead cost. All other expenses are treated as period cost or expense immediately. Hindi siya inventoriable cost. Next, the throughput or super variable costing, sabi natin kanina, ang tinitreat niya lang as product cost or inventoriable cost ay yung direct materials. So, siya lang yung may check dito sa types of cost under the throughput costing. And all other cost, period cost na sila under throughput costing method. Ito na nalagay. So, treatment of cost. Summer Company has computed the following unit cost for the year just ended. So, we have direct materials, direct labor, variable overhead, fixed overhead, variable selling and administrative cost, and also fixed selling and administrative cost. 12 pesos, 18 pesos, 25 pesos, 29, 10, and 17. The requirements are: first, under variable costing, each unit of the company's inventory would be carried at. So, pwede rin tanongin yung product cost or inventoriable cost. Okay? So, ang kukunin nyo po ay yung product cost using variable costing and absorption costing. So, makikita natin dito, meron tayong checklist na ginawa. So, under variable cost, sabi natin, kukunin lang natin si direct materials, direct labor, and variable. So, sila yung may check, sila yung included sa company's inventory or inventoriable cost or product cost. So, 12 plus 18 is 30 plus 25 equals 55 pesos. Kaya yan ang answer natin sa requirement number 1. Then, under the absorption costing, dapat isama daw natin ang fixed overhead kasi yan ay treated as product cost under absorption costing. Kaya meron tayong check sa tapat ni fixed overhead, 29 pesos. So, yung 55 plus 29, we have 84 pesos na inventoriable cost or product cost under the absorption costing. So, ganun lang kumuha ng product cost at ng period cost. Animation. So, next. So, gross margin versus contribution margin. So, saan ba natin makikita si gross margin? Gross margin or gross profit or gross income. Okay? Etong contribution margin, alam naman natin na ginagamit natin yan sa contribution margin approach na paggawa ng income statement. Etong isa naman yung traditional or absorption costing. Okay, so Choco Corporation, which began business at the start of the current year, had the following data. So we have the planned and actual production, 40,000 units. Sales, 37,000 units. And the selling price per unit daw is 15 pesos. Production cost or manufacturing cost, variable daw ay 4 pesos per unit and given yung fixed cost, total 260,000 pesos. So, kung mapapansin nyo dito, 260,000 pesos divided by 40,000 units, we have 6 pesos and 50 centavos. Ano tong 6 pesos and 50 centavos? Ito yung fixed production cost per unit natin or yung fixed manufacturing overhead per unit, 650. So, kailangan mong i-divide itong total fixed production cost or total fixed manufacturing cost doon sa actual production to get the estimated fixed manufacturing overhead per unit. Then, given din dito yung selling and administrative cost, variable is 1 peso per unit and the fixed cost is 32,000 pesos. The requirements are: the gross margin that the company would disclose on an absorption costing income statement and the contribution margin the company would disclose on a variable costing income statement. So, these are the answers, 166,500 and 370,000. So, kahit naman hindi sabihin kung anong costing method yung ginamit, malalaman nyo kung absorption or variable costing. Kasi nga, sabi natin, yung gross margin, saan ba nakikita? Doon sa absorption or traditional na income statement. Yung contribution margin, saan natin nakikita? Dun sa contribution margin approach na paggawa ng income statement. So, malamang variable costing or direct costing yung ginamit dyan. Ito yung naging solution. So, sales, diba, 37,000 units daw yung nabenta at 15 pesos each. So, 555,000 yung total sales or total revenue. Then, ima-minus natin yung cost of goods sold. The cost of goods sold under absorption costing is the product cost or inventoriable cost, which is 10 pesos and 50 centavos. Saan po nanggaling yung 10 pesos and 50 centavos? Yan yung production cost na 4 pesos variable and 6 pesos and 50 centavos na fixed, 10.50. And our total cost of goods sold is equal to 388,500. Kaya meron tayong gross margin or gross profit or gross income, 166,500. Okay, so yan yung answer sa first requirement. And the second one, kaya nakuha na contribution margin. So this is the computation. Sales, syempre parehas lang din yung magiging sales kasi parehas lang naman yung nabenta at yung selling price per unit, 37,000 units times 15 pesos. We have 555,000. Then, less daw natin yung total variable cost. So, sa total variable cost, included dyan yung kasama sa product cost at yung variable selling and administrative expenses. Kasi nga, etong variable cost na ito ay yung total variable cost na na-incur ng company. So, sa given natin kanina, we have variable overhead or variable production cost na 4 pesos per unit, and we also have variable selling and admin na 1 peso per unit. So, kung i-add natin, 4 plus 1 peso is 5 pesos. Then, multiplied by the total sales na 37,000 units. So, we have a total of 185,000 variable cost. So, after we deduct the total variable cost to the total sales or revenue, we come up with 370,000 total contribution margin. Okay? So, meron din minsan, tinatanong yung problem, baka magtaka kayo, may tinanong, how much is the total manufacturing contribution margin? So, kung ang tanong ay manufacturing contribution margin, ang ililess mo dun sa total sales, okay, sa total sales or total revenue, ay yung total variable cost na product cost. Okay? So, if ang tinatanong ay the total manufacturing contribution margin, ang ililess mo lang sa sales ay yung may kinalaman sa manufacturing cost or product cost under variable costing. So, yung 37,000, i-multiply mo by 4. So, 37,000 times 4 is equal to 148,000. Then, ililess mo yun sa total sales na 555,000. Ang magiging manufacturing contribution margin mo ay 407,000. Okay? Baka may ma-encounter kasi kayong ganong problem. The difference in income under absorption and variable costing. So, bakit daw ba nagkakaroon ng difference dun sa income ng dalawang methods ng pagkuha ng cost ng isang product? So, ang dahilan daw ay sa pagkakaiba or pagkakaparehas ng production at ng sales. So, if the production is equal to sales, there's no change in inventory. Okay, what is the change in inventory? Yun yung production less sales. So, ibig sabihin, fixed overhead expense under absorption costing equals fixed overhead expense under variable costing. And therefore, absorption costing income equals variable costing. Ibig sabihin lang, kapag equal daw ang production sa nabenta or sa sales, equal po ang magiging income ni absorption at variable costing. Next, what if production is greater than sales. So, ang nangyari, mas madami tayong na-produce compare sa nabenta natin. Dito naman, there's an increase in inventory. Ibig sabihin, yung ending inventory natin is greater than the beginning inventory. Fixed overhead expense under absorption costing is less than fixed overhead expense under variable costing, and therefore, absorption costing income is greater than variable costing. Meaning, mas malaki yung income na mako-compute natin under the absorption costing compared doon sa variable costing because production is greater than sales. And last, we have production is less than sales. So, kabaliktaran ng production is greater than sales. So, ibig sabihin, there is a decrease in inventory, meaning ending inventory is less than the beginning inventory. And fixed overhead expense under absorption costing is greater than fixed overhead expense under variable costing. So, therefore, absorption costing income is less than variable costing. So, mas mababa yung mako-compute nating net income or net profit using the absorption costing compared doon sa variable costing method. Okay? So, para mas maintindihan, i-apply natin siya sa problem. So, alam nyo, yung ginamit ko talagang technique para sa pag-compute or para hindi ako mamali ng pag-compute ng income doon sa absorption at saka sa variable costing is etong EBPSAV. So, ano po yung ibig sabihin ng EBPSAV na yan? So, E is the ending inventory, B is the beginning inventory, P is the production, S is sales, A is absorption costing, and V is variable costing method. So, pwede diba kasi na magkaroon ng difference in income? Pero kung equals. So, yan yung magiging sign kasi natin dyan sa EBPSAV na yan. So, kapag equal yung production at sales, equal din ang ending at beginning inventory, and equal din daw yung income under absorption and variable costing. Kung sakali namang greater than, the production is greater than the sales, ganon din yung magiging symbol dito sa EB at AV. So, ang income under absorption is greater than the variable costing. Kapag less than naman yung production sa sales, ganon din po yung gagamitin nating symbol. So, less than, meaning absorption costing income is less than the income of variable costing method. So, for the accounting or reconciliation for difference in income, we have change in inventory. Kung mapapansin nyo, doon sa paliwanag kanina sa production and sales, okay, sa difference in income, binabanggit lagi yung change in inventory. So, paano nakukuha yung change in inventory? Ang gagawin natin is, we subtract the sales dun sa production or production less sales. So, for example, sa problem natin, we have 40,000 units of production pero ang nabenta lang ay 37,000 units. So, merong change in inventory. Meron tayong 3,000 units change in inventory. And, imumultiply natin yun sa fixed factory overhead cost per unit. Then, yun yung difference in income natin. Bakit po yun? Kasi nga, di ba sabi natin, ang absorption at variable costing, nagkaiba sila ng treatment doon sa fixed factory overhead. Okay? Under absorption, tinitreat niya as product cost, while under variable costing, ang treatment natin ay period cost. So, kahit ilan yung mabenta, sa variable cost, lahat ng fixed cost ay expense na agad. Pero pagdating doon sa absorption costing, kung ilan lang yung mabenta, yun lang yung fixed overhead cost. Tama? Okay. Yung absorption costing at variable costing using the previous illustration or yung sample problem natin kanina na kinuha natin ang gross margin at yung contribution margin. So, let's start with the ABPSAV. So, sabi natin kanina, yung production ay greater than the sales kasi 40,000 and 37,000 yung sales. So, mas mataas yung production by 3,000 pesos. So, ibig sabihin, mas mataas yung ending inventory. Since 40,000 yung production, 37 lang yung nabenta, may natira pang 3,000. So, mas malaki yung ending compare sa beginning. And, mas mataas yung income na makocompute natin under absorption costing according dito sa EBPSAV. Tignan nga natin kung totoo. So, ito ang naging computation ng net income under the absorption costing. So, ang ginagamit natin yung traditional way ng pag-compute ng net income. Sales less COGS equals gross income less operating expenses equals the net profit or net income. So, this is the computation. We have the total sales na 555,000, cost of goods sold 388,500, and gross income of 166,500, then ililess natin lahat ng operating expenses. Ano ba yung nabanggit na operating expenses? Siyempre, yan yung mga period cost. Okay? So, we have variable selling and admin at fixed selling and admin. Yung variable selling and admin ay given po. Okay? So, piso daw kada isang unit ng product. So, we have 37,000 and yung fixed selling and admin ay 32,000 pesos. After we deduct the operating expenses dun sa gross income or gross margin or gross profit, we have now 97,500 na net income. Okay, anong sabi nung problem? Mas mataas yung production sa sales. So, ang makocompute daw nating income under absorption ay mas mataas compare sa variable. So, kaya mo dibang computein yung difference in income nila. So, ito yung magiging reconciliation. Change in inventory, yung 40,000 less 37,000, may difference na 3,000 units, which is the change in inventory, times 6 pesos and 50 centavos. Saan po nanggaling yan? Yan po yung fixed factory overhead or fixed manufacturing overhead per unit. So, ang difference in income daw under absorption and variable costing ay 19,500. So, ngayon, ang gawin mo, 97,500 less 19,500. Ang magiging sagot mo ay 78,000. Yan daw ang net income ng variable costing method. Kasi 'di ba, mas mataas nga daw yung absorption compare sa variable costing. At ito yung difference nila, 19,500. Tignan nga natin sa computation ni variable costing kung tama yung analysis natin. Okay, so tama po yung analysis natin na ang difference in income nila 19,500. So, mas mataas itong absorption costing. So, bawasan na natin ng 19,500. Ang net income ay 78,000 pesos. Ito yung computation natin. So, contribution margin 370,000 less the total fixed expenses na meron si company. Ano ba yan? 260,000 na fixed overhead at yung 32,000 na fixed selling and administrative expenses kaya naging 292,000. So, the total net income under the variable costing is 78 pesos, which is lower by 19,500 compared to the net income computed using absorption costing na 97,500. Okay. Example problem. Donna Company began business at the start of the current year. So, etong mga problems na to, yun din yung nasa module. So, para mas maintindihan nyo, i-explain ko lang din. The company planned to produce 25,000 units and actual production conformed to expectations. Sales totaled 22,000 units at 30 pesos each. Cost incurred were variable manufacturing overhead per unit daw is 8 pesos. Fixed manufacturing overhead is 150,000 pesos. And variable selling and administrative cost per unit is 2 pesos. And fixed selling and admin expenses or cost ay 100,000 pesos. The requirement is, if there were no variances, the company's absorption and variable costing income would be how much? So, dito sa problem, wala pa tayong variances. Paano natin nakukompute yung variances? Diba, pag kino-compare natin yung actual cost and standard cost. So, dito naman walang sinabi pa. So, yung normal na pag-compute lang ng net income or net profit. And baka nagtataka kayo, hala ma'am, wala naman po diyang direct materials at saka direct labor. Di ba po, alam natin na ang direct materials at direct labor ay variable cost din naman. So, dito na yun included sa variable manufacturing overhead na 8 pesos. Okay. And dito din, yung fixed manufacturing overhead natin na 150,000, pwede nating makompute yung per unit. Okay? Kasi pwede natin siyang gamitin sa pag-compute ng product cost using absorption and variable costing. So, 150,000 divided by the actual production given then 25,000. So, ang fixed manufacturing overhead natin ay 6 pesos per unit. Solution para sa net income under the two methods are here. So, we have total sales of 660,000 pesos. So, pinagsama na natin sa isang formula, absorption and variable. Less the cost of goods sold. Ang cost of goods sold ay under ng absorption costing. So, 22,000 times sa 14 pesos. Saan po galing yung 14 pesos? Yung product cost under absorption costing. 8 pesos na variable cost plus 6 pesos na fixed manufacturing overhead per unit. So, 14 pesos. So, the total cost of goods sold is 308,000. Next, variable overhead cost. So, ang kapantay niya ay ito yung 22,000 times 8 pesos. Okay, so we have 176,000. Okay, then, add daw natin yung variable selling and admin. Kanino natin i-add yung variable selling and admin? So, malamang dito sa variable costing. Kasi kailangan nating i-less lahat ng variable cost to get the contribution margin. Okay. So, now, we have total cost of goods sold under absorption costing 308,000 and total variable cost of 220,000. And then, we now can get the total gross income and contribution margin. So, we have 352,000 under absorption costing. Paano po nakuha si 352? 660,000 less the total cost of goods sold na 308,000. And the contribution margin under variable costing is 440,000. Nakuha yan by subtracting 220,000 na total variable cost doon sa total sales or revenue na 660,000. And kung titignan natin, sa pag-minus or pag-subtract ng period cost, magkaiba under absorption and variable costing. Ito ay dahil sa treatment nila sa fixed manufacturing overhead. So, under absorption costing, we have 144,000. Yan yung variable selling and admin at saka fixed selling and admin or the operating expenses. Pagdating naman sa variable cost, itong 250,000, ito yung total fixed expenses. 150,000 plus 100,000. So, the total net income under absorption costing is 208,000 greater than the variable costing net income na 190,000. So, ang difference nila ay 18,000. Yan po ay dahil doon sa change in inventory 3,000 units times the 6 pesos na fixed manufacturing overhead per unit. So, yung 3,000 galing yan sa 25,000 units na total production less 22,000 na total sales. Tapos kay standard costing. Kasi kasama pa rin siya sa product costing or absorption costing and variable costing. Kaya yung pinag-aralan nyo sa umpisa nitong subject na ito ay hindi nyo dapat makalimutan. Kasi magkakadugtong lahat ng yan. Kasama pa yung cost accounting kasi ganun din siya, doon din siya nag-umpisa. So when a firm uses the standard costing system and income statements are prepared under the absorption and variable costing methods, so number 1 daw, ang cost of goods sold are computed at standard. Okay, so the standard cost of goods sold is adjusted to actual cost by adding unfavorable variances and or deducting favorable variances. So, paano po yung standard cost of goods sold or standard variable cost? Yang total sales mo ay multiply mo lang doon sa product or inventoriable cost na na-compute mo under the variable and absorption costing. Third, in absorption costing, both the variable and fixed manufacturing cost variances are used as adjustment to the standard cost of goods sold. So, lahat na mako-compute yung variances. Okay? Ulitin natin, ang variances na compute by comparing the actual and standard cost. So, adjustment sila dun sa standard cost of goods sold. So, in variable costing daw, only the variable manufacturing cost variances are used as adjustments to the standard cost of goods sold. Okay, so alalahanin natin, review natin. Dun sa standard costing, di ba may mga variances tayong nako-compute? Meron para sa direct materials, direct labor, variable overhead, and fixed overhead. So, under absorption costing, kung may mako-compute kayong variances sa apat na yon, lahat yun ay included. Pero pagdating sa variable costing, may hindi kayo isasama. Pag nakakompute kayo ng variances sa fixed manufacturing overhead, syempre hindi nyo yun isasama. Okay? So, si Ayana Corporation, gumagamit daw siya ng standard costing system for a product that it manufactures. So for the year 2020, the following standards were established based on normal production of 1,000 units. So ito ang kanyang normal capacity, 1,000 units. And this is the standard cost per piece or per unit ng product. So 57 pesos. And the following are the actual data for the year 2020. Ang production niya is 1,100 units. Mas madami siyang na-produce compared dun sa kanyang normal capacity. Ibig sabihin, favorable yung mako-compute nating volume or capacity variance. Okay? And sales, 950 units. Selling price is 80 per unit. And eto naman yung actual cost for direct materials, 13,050. Labor, 23,306. Variable overhead is 15,718. Fixed factory overhead is 12,000. And the selling and administrative cost under the variable and fixed are 5,700 and 8,000 respectively. So, ang una muna natin gagawin, since gumamit tayo ng standard costing sa pag-compute ng net income, okay? So, hanapin muna natin lahat ng variances na pwedeng meron doon sa company. So, we have materials, labor, variable overhead, and fixed overhead. So, yan yung mga cost involved. So, we are just going to compare the actual cost and the standard cost to get the difference or the variances. So, dito, ang actual material cost daw ay 13,050. Pero ang standard cost ay 13,200, which is greater than the actual. So, favorable yon sa atin. So, variance is 150 pesos favorable sa materials. Then, labor is 1,306 unfavorable, 782 favorable sa variable overhead, and 1,000 unfavorable sa fixed overhead. Okay. So, tignan natin dito. Yung pag-compute ng standard cost, sabi natin cost that should be incurred for actual production. So, predetermined rate times the actual production. Ang total ng na-produce natin is 1,100. So, multiply lang natin by their standard cost per unit. So, 13,200, ito siya. 22,000, ito rin siya. And 16,500, ito po. And 11,000. So, pwede natin gawin is pagsamahin na yung parehas na favorable, pagsamahin na rin yung parehas na unfavorable. Okay? Para magamit natin sa computation ng ating adjusted COGS or sa net income. Ang effect daw under standard costing, kasi ina-adjust natin yung COGS, tama? COGS is an expense na binabawas natin doon sa ating total revenue or sales. So, kung may favorable variances tayo, anong gagawin natin doon sa COGS? I-less natin siya. Kapag unfavorable naman, i-add natin siya kasi additional expenses ang nangyari. So, this is the computation of the income for absorption costing and variable costing. So, total sales is 76,000. And sabi natin doon kanina sa kung paano mag-compute, okay, ng income under absorption and variable costing na gumagamit ng standard cost, kunin muna natin yung standard cost of goods sold or yung variable cost. So, 57 and 47 yung naging product cost under absorption and variable costing. And we have to adjust that by the variances that we computed kanina. So, meron tayong total favorable variances. Sabi natin, ang effect nun sa COGS ay deduction. And kapag unfavorable naman, yun ay magiging addition sa ating COGS since expense yun. Okay. So, kung mapapansin nyo, lahat ng na-compute natin na variances ay in-adjust natin under absorption costing. Pero pagdating sa variable costing, hindi lahat. Kasi hindi natin isasama yung na-compute nating variances na 1,000. So, 1,306 lang yung dito. Okay? So, after that, makikita natin na ang total net income under absorption is 6,776 and 5,276 naman kay variable costing. Mas mataas po ang net income under absorption costing compared to the variable costing. Why? Kasi mas mataas yung production dun sa sales. Tama? Production is 1,100 and then the sales is 950 lang. So, 1,100 less 950 is equal to 150 units multiplied by the fixed overhead na magkano po yun? 15 pesos or 10 pesos. Given siya 10 pesos times 150 na change in inventory, difference is 1,500. Okay? So, nasa module nyo po para makita nyo at masundan nyo itong pinagsasabi ko. Determination of product cost. Ito ay nasa self-check test, problem number 1. So, the following data pertain to the only product manufactured and sold by Amy Corporation. So, may selling price, 75 pesos per unit, and given yung kanyang cost. Okay? Manufacturing cost and selling and admin cost. We have 20 pesos per unit na material cost, labor is 10, variable overhead is 12, fixed overhead is 13, and the variable selling and admin is 5, fixed selling and admin is 7, for a total of 67,000 na expenses per unit. So, ang profit per unit na lang is 8 pesos. Ang requirement or gustong ipahanap sa atin ay yung product cost daw per unit using absorption and using the variable costing. Sabi natin, kapag absorption costing, lahat ng manufacturing cost ay inventoriable or product cost. So, the answer is 55 pesos. 20 na materials, 10 na labor, variable overhead na 12, at 13 pesos na fixed overhead, total is 55 pesos. While doon sa variable costing, hindi natin ini-include si fixed overhead. Kaya, ang answer natin is 42 pesos. So, that would be all. We don't grow when things are easy. We grow when we face challenges. Okay, so, tama naman, 'di ba? Kasi minsan kapag yung mga bagay na ginagawa natin ay madali lang or kung baga sanay na tayo sa ganung bagay, ganito lang yan gawin, okay lang yan, madali ko lang yan matatapos, 'di ba? So parang hindi tayo nag-grow kasi yun at yun lang din yung gagawin natin. Pero kung dun sa mga bagay na ginagawa natin, makaka-encounter tayo ng challenges, 'di ba? Parang sinusubok tayo ng pagkakataon, yung feeling na, ay, mas magpupursige ako. 'Di ba? Kasi na-challenge tayo eh. Hindi yung, ay, simple lang naman gawin yan. Alam ko nang gawin yan. Madali lang yan. Pero kung eto, ano tawag dito? May mga challenges, okay? Para magawa natin yung gusto natin, mas mag-grow tayo kasi mas nag-e-effort tayo, mas nagbibigay tayo ng time, okay? So, parang dyan sa pag-aaral nyo, or dun sa goal na gusto nyong marating, parang ngayon merong pandemic, di ba, mas nag-e-effort kayo, binibigyan nyo ng time yung pag-aaral nyo. Hindi yung nasa school lang. Dati nung nasa school lang, okay, paisi-isi, pasok. Nandiyan na si ma, magle-lesson, makikinig kunwari. Diba? Minsan nga napapabayaan nyo lang yung book nyo, hindi nyo binubuklat eh. Pero ngayong nagka-pandemic, dahil sarili nyo na lang inaasahan nyo, sige, go, aral-aral, effort, may time na binibigay. Okay, so minsan mas maganda talaga na yung mga ginagawa nating bagay-bagay ay na-challenge tayo para mas mag-grow tayo as a person. So, yun lang. End of presentation. Thank you and bye-bye. God bless everyone. Good health. Good night.